What if the greatest hero of Middle-earth was not just reborn, but completely transformed? After his epic battle with the Balrog, Gandalf emerges not just a survivor, but as a beacon of hope, transitioning from the gray to the white. This transformation is more than a mere change in appearance. It signifies a shift in power, purpose, and destiny. Join me as we explore the profound changes that define Gandalf the White and how they alter the course of the fight against Sauron. The flames of Khazad-dûm curled high into the endless dark, licking at the stone pillars as if the mountain itself sought to devour intruders. There, in the abyss where fire met shadow, the gray pilgrim fell. "You shall not pass," Gandalf had cried upon the bridge, his staff raised, his voice a thunder that shook stone and spirit alike. The Balrog roared in answer, wings unfurled like a storm of night. Staff shattered, sword gleaming, Gandalf clung to the edge of the world and dragged the demon down with him. Thus ended Gandalf the Grey. Or so it seemed. But death in Middle-earth is no mere end. For some, it is a passage into halls beyond Arda's circles. For others, those sent not only as wanderers but as heralds of greater will, it is a turning point written in the designs of the Valar themselves. Gandalf fell, yet in falling, he was remade. Before we continue further, if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, it would mean the world and help us share more tales of Arda. Now, let's return to the story. When he awoke, he knew not time nor place. Cold ran through his bones, yet light burned upon him, fierce and cleansing. He had wrestled shadow in the deepest deeps and pursued flame to the mountain's peak. He had perished upon the highest pinnacle of stone, body broken, breath gone. And still, his task was not complete. In that silence, beyond the reach of mortal air, the One had judged his labor unfinished. Gandalf was sent back, robed anew, mind and spirit unbound from the weariness of years. No longer was he the gray pilgrim, cloaked in secrecy and wandering with quiet counsel. He was the White Rider, servant of the flame imperishable, bearer of light against the shadow. What then had changed? Not only the hue of his cloak, but the very fabric of his being. Strength renewed, wisdom deepened, will sharpened. Yet even more, his place among the peoples of Middle-earth had shifted. No longer a guide walking beside them, he had become the figure who must stand before them. Thus began Gandalf the White. Gandalf the Grey had been subtle, often cloaking power beneath riddles and laughter. He carried the weight of Middle-earth with patience, unwilling to reveal too much of himself. In council, he was keen of thought, yet always one among many voices. But Gandalf the White was something more. When Aragorn first beheld him in Fangorn, mist curling through the trees, he doubted his own eyes. The old friend had returned, but brighter, sterner, commanding in a way that surpassed all memory. Legolas faltered, hand upon his bow. Gimli's axe lowered with suspicion. They felt it too, the difference. "Indeed, I am Saruman, one might almost say," Gandalf told them, his voice a calm flame, Saruman as he should have been. The words revealed the truth of his new state. Where once he was companion, now he was authority. Where once he counseled, now he commanded. The trials of death had burned away hesitation, leaving only purpose. This transformation was not arrogance, it was necessity. Gandalf's mission had sharpened into clarity. The shadow must be opposed with all strength, without delay, without doubt. No longer would he tarry in long riddles while kingdoms withered. He had returned to hasten war's end, for time itself bent against them. Yet along with sternness came compassion deeper still, for he knew now the cost of struggle more than ever. He had walked the road of death and returned with pity for all who would fall upon it. His eyes, though keen with light, carried the sorrow of one who had touched the brink of finality. It was in this balance, wrath tempered by pity, fire steadied by wisdom, that Gandalf's transformation became most visible. He was no longer merely a guide among mortals, he was their rallying flame. The Grey Pilgrim had been powerful, but restrained. Fireworks for hobbits, a subtle word in a council, quiet encouragement to leers too proud or too fearful. Gandalf the Grey had hidden the full measure of his might, lest it draw too much notice, or lest it burden the fragile balance of mortal will. But Gandalf the White was unveiled. When he rode to Edoras, clad in brilliance, even the will of Saruman trembled. Theoden King, once enthralled, stirred from shadow with a cry, for Gandalf's presence shattered enchantments. With word and staff, he broke the chains upon the king's mind. Saruman's whispers, once so strong, withered like smoke before a gale. This was no longer mere persuasion. It was authority, the true authority of one who bore the mandate of the Valar. Gandalf's voice carried weight like stone. His gaze pierced like sunlight through mist. Even the creatures of darkness faltered. The Nazgul, who had scattered armies in terror, were driven back by his coming, as if dawn itself rode at his side. At Helm's Deep, his power became hope incarnate. He vanished into the night, leaving men beleaguered upon the walls. Yet when dawn broke, there he was, cresting the ridge with Erkenbrand's riders, white light streaming from his staff. Darkness fled, orcs wavered, and victory against all measure was won. Still, his might was not measured in sorcery alone. Gandalf's true power lay in command. In the hearts he turned from despair to defiance. No spell was needed when men, once broken, rose to fight again with burning spirit. And in this perhaps lay his greatest change, for Gandalf the Grey had walked beside the people. Gandalf the White now stood before them as standard-bearer of their hope. The world of the Grey Wizard had always been one of hidden nudges and quiet watchfulness. Gandalf, in that guise, had been content to prod a hobbit here, to whisper counsel there, to steer with gentle hands rather than seize the helm. But death had stripped away that veil. As Gandalf the White, he could no longer afford to stand apart. The free peoples were scattered and afraid. Rohan bent beneath Saruman's treachery. Gondor staggered under the unceasing shadow of Mordor, and even the Fellowship itself was broken. In such a time, hesitation was ruin. Thus, Gandalf stepped into command. At Edoras, when Theoden faltered, it was Gandalf who steered the king toward open war. He did not merely advise, he compelled. His words struck with the weight of necessity. Ride out to war. And Theoden, who only hours before had been bent and aged under the spell of despair, now rose in armor, leading his riders to Helm's Deep. There too, Gandalf's leadership was unmistakable. Though he left in secrecy, his parting words carried a command. Look to my coming at first light on the 5th day. At dawn, look to the east. He did not offer hope alone, but certainty, a promise that he himself would fulfill. When that dawn came, the White Rider did not merely return, he arrived as the embodiment of victory. His timing, his presence, his mastery of the field turned a hopeless siege into legend. He had become not only a leader, but a general, weaving battle like a great tapestry of fate. Yet his role stretched further still. At Minas Tirith, Gandalf's leadership was all that stood between the City of Kings and annihilation. Denethor, broken by pride and madness, abandoned his duty. It was Gandalf who took command. He strode upon the walls, staff blazing, voice ringing over the tumult of war, ordering men, steadying hearts, reminding them that they fought not alone, but as part of a story greater than themselves. And though he could not, by power alone, hold back Mordor's tide forever, his leadership ensured the flame did not go out before help came. Even in the darkest night, the White Rider stood as the light men clung to. To understand what truly changed, one must see beyond mere deeds. Gandalf the Grey had been cloaked in shadowed hues, wandering as a weathered pilgrim, humble and unassuming. His color had reflected his place, between the dark and the light, ever a traveler in the twilight. But white was finality. White was revelation. In the lore of the Istari, Saruman had once borne that mantle, for white is the sum of all colors, the completion of the spectrum. Yet Saruman corrupted it, twisting brilliance into vanity. His robes were no longer pure, but shimmering with many hues, an outward sign of division and deceit. Thus, when Gandalf returned in white, it was not a usurpation, but a restoration. He did not steal Saruman's place. He became what Saruman had failed to be. The symbolism ran deeper still. White was clarity, the flame unshadowed. It meant hope rekindled, the dawn after a long night. Wherever Gandalf rode, men felt its power, not because of spells, but because they saw in him the very promise that darkness could be broken. To the elves, his change was an echo of the light of Valinor, a reminder of the ancient fire that once kindled their world. To men, it was the sight of a banner raised high when all others had fallen. To the servants of Sauron, it was dread, for in the White Rider they saw that their master's will was not unchallenged, and that even death itself could not claim victory. White, then, was not merely color, it was a sign of purpose fulfilled, of authority unshaken, of hope invincible. When the final battles drew near, and the ring-bearers staggered toward Mount Doom, Gandalf's transformation proved its true worth. He could not fight Frodo's battle for him, nor could he storm Barad-dûr with sword and staff. His task was different, to hold the gaze of the eye, to draw forth Sauron's might, so that two small hobbits might slip through shadow unseen. Thus he led Aragorn, Éomer, and the hosts of the West to the Black Gate. It was a march of doom, yet Gandalf spoke with certainty. We must walk open-eyed into that trap, with courage but small hope for ourselves. He knew full well that victory in arms was impossible, yet his leadership, his light, his very presence gave the free peoples the courage to go. They stood at the mouth of Mordor itself, not in despair, but in defiance. And in that defiance lay the chance that saved the world. When the ring was destroyed, Gandalf's role as the White was fulfilled. His task was never to rule, nor to linger as a king among men. It was to guide, to defend, to kindle light until others could bear it. His transformation had made that possible. He became not only greater in power, but unshakable in purpose, enduring until the end. And when his work was complete, he departed across the sea, leaving Middle-earth to the rule of men. Yet his legacy endured. For in every age after, the story of the White Rider stood as proof that even in the blackest night, light may be rekindled, that death may be a doorway to renewal, that change, painful though it may be, can bring forth a truer self. Thus did Gandalf the Grey, humble wanderer, become Gandalf the White, herald of hope. His transformation was not only of robes and power, but of spirit, authority, and purpose. He became the standard against which all stood, the leader when none remained, the flame when all else faltered. And though his road carried him beyond the circles of the world, his story remains, a reminder that change, when embraced with courage, can bring forth renewal, even from the ashes of despair. If you wish to journey deeper into the legends of Middle-earth, join us in our next tale, where other hidden mysteries of Arda shall be revealed.